College, for many, it's the first taste of freedom. Late-night study sessions fueled by instant noodles, laughter echoing down long hallways, and the promise of a future just beginning. It's a chapter of life defined by new friendships and unforgettable memories. For Sarah, Emily, and Mark, room 308 in Blackwood Hall was supposed to be their sanctuary, their home away from home. The semester started like any other. They decorated the walls with posters, complained about early morning classes, and shared secrets in the dead of night. They felt safe. They had no idea that something else was sharing the room with them, waiting in the silence. The first few weeks were a blur of excitement. The crisp autumn air filled the campus, and the energy was electric. In room 308, life was simple. Sarah was the studious one, her desk always a fortress of textbooks. Emily was the artist, her side of the room a vibrant splash of canvases and paint. Mark was the social butterfly, always bringing friends back for movie nights. They were a perfect, mismatched little family. But as September bled into October, a subtle chill began to settle in their room, one that had nothing to do with the changing seasons. It started with small things, easily dismissed. A book falling from a shelf with no one near it. The faint scent of old perfume in a room where no one wore any. They'd laugh it off, blaming the old building's quirks. Every old dorm has its stories, right? Just creaks and groans, nothing more. It was a Tuesday night. Mark was out with friends, and Emily was in the art studio. Sarah was alone, cramming for a midterm. The only sounds were the turning of pages and the hum of the mini-fridge. Then, she heard it. A soft whisper, like the rustle of dry leaves, from the corner of the room. She froze, straining to listen. It was so faint, she almost convinced herself she'd imagined it. But then it came again, a little clearer this time. A single, drawn-out word that sounded like her name, Sarah. She whipped her head around. The room was empty. The window was closed. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She called out, "Emily." "Mark, is that you?" Only silence answered. She told herself it was just stress, her mind playing tricks on her. But a seed of fear had been planted. The strange occurrences began to escalate. It wasn't just whispers anymore. Objects would move on their own. Emily's paintbrushes would be rearranged overnight. Mark's keys, always left on his desk, would be found dangling from the doorknob. They started noticing shadows in their peripheral vision, dark, fleeting shapes that would vanish the moment they turned to look. The room felt colder, heavier. The air grew thick with a palpable tension, especially after sundown. They tried to reason with it. Old wiring, drafts, sleep deprivation. But the explanations were wearing thin, unable to cover the growing dread that coiled in their stomachs. They started avoiding being in the room alone. The once cozy space now felt like a cage, and they were trapped inside with something unseen. One night, the three of them were watching a movie. The mood was light, a temporary escape from the creeping anxiety. Suddenly, all the lights in the room flickered violently and went out, plunging them into absolute darkness. A collective gasp filled the air. Mark fumbled for his phone, its flashlight cutting a nervous beam through the black. And that's when they saw it. For a split second, illuminated by the phone's light, a tall, slender figure stood by the window. It was just a silhouette, devoid of any features, but its presence was overwhelming, ancient, and filled with a chilling sadness. Before anyone could scream, the figure was gone. The lights flickered back on as if nothing had happened. They stared at the empty space, their faces pale with shock. The movie was forgotten. Sleep was impossible. What they had seen was real. It wasn't a draft. It wasn't their imagination. They were not alone. The following days were a nightmare. The whispering became clearer, a constant, mournful sound that seemed to seep from the very walls. Sometimes it would be a single name, other times just incoherent murmurs. They would hear footsteps pacing the room when they were all in their beds, the creak of floorboards just inches away. Doors they knew they had locked would be found wide open. The apparition appeared more frequently, a glimpse in the reflection of the TV screen, a shadowy form standing at the foot of their beds as they woke up, paralyzed with fear. They were exhausted, mentally and physically. Their grades slipped. The laughter that once filled room 308 was replaced by hushed, frantic conversations about what to do. They felt like they were being watched, constantly. The entity was no longer just a passive presence. It felt like it was trying to communicate, its sorrow and anger poisoning the atmosphere. Desperate, they began researching the history of Blackwood Hall. They spent hours in the campus library, sifting through old yearbooks and archived newspapers. What they found chilled them to the bone. Decades ago, room 308 was occupied by a student named Eleanor Vance. She was a reclusive literature major, known for being exceptionally quiet. One winter, she was found in the room, having taken her own life. The articles were brief, clinical, but a small passage in a student journal from that year described how Eleanor had become withdrawn, claiming to hear voices calling her name from the walls, telling her she was alone. The same room, the same whispers. They weren't just being haunted. They were living a tragedy that was repeating itself. The entity wasn't just a ghost. It was Eleanor, trapped in an eternal loop of her final, lonely days. Knowing the story didn't bring them peace. It made it worse. Now, the sorrow they felt in the room had a name. The whispers were not just random sounds. They were Eleanor's. They started leaving the lights on all night, playing music constantly to drown out the sounds. But it was no use. The presence grew stronger, more demanding. One evening, Emily was sketching when her hand was seemingly guided by an unseen force. The pencil moved on its own, frantically scribbling a single word over and over across the page. Leave. The message was clear. They were not welcome. This was Eleanor's room, her prison, and their presence was an intrusion on her private grief. Panic set in. This was no longer just a spooky story. It was a direct threat. They had to get out. They went to the housing administration, their voices trembling as they recounted the events. They showed them the moving objects they had filmed, the page Emily had scribbled. They were met with skepticism, with rational explanations of stress and overactive imaginations. But the sheer terror in their eyes was undeniable. After days of pleading, after Mark's parents got involved, the administration reluctantly agreed to move them to another dorm on the opposite side of campus. They packed their belongings in a frantic rush, not even caring to be neat. Every shadow made them jump. Every creak of the floorboards sent a jolt of fear through them. As they carried the last box out, Sarah took one final look back at room 308. The door was slightly ajar. From the darkness within, she heard it one last time, a faint, heartbreaking whisper. Don't go. Sarah, Emily, and Mark finished the semester in their new dorm. The nightmares faded, and the constant feeling of being watched eventually dissipated. But they were never the same. The experience left a scar on them, a deep-seated fear of the dark, of silence, of being alone. They rarely spoke of what happened in room 308, but it hung between them, an unspoken trauma. Blackwood Hall still stands, and every year, new students move into its rooms, unaware of the history hidden within its walls. Room 308 remains occupied. The college administration officially lists the haunting as an unsubstantiated rumor. But late at night, when the hallways are quiet, students sometimes report hearing faint whispers coming from behind the door of room 308, a sorrowful voice, forever trapped, forever lonely. What would you do if you heard someone calling your name, Nan? No one was there.